Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today is July 4th, 2025, and we're diving into a really powerful piece that just came out today from PowerAfrika. It's called I'm Black and Proud by Shangox. And our mission really is to get into what makes this statement, this declaration, feel so profound. The author says it's delivered with the quiet conviction of a mountain, not with clenched fists or angry eyes. So we want to understand how this becomes what they call a sacred belonging, even a miracle walking. Okay, let's unpack this. This isn't just a simple statement, right? It's, like the author says, a whole cosmos. How do they manage that?
Yeah, it's fascinating. Right away, the article moves past any sort of simple definition of identity. It's very deliberate. It frames blackness, not as something that needs explaining or apologizing for. Instead, it's presented as a legacy to be lived and a song carried in the bones, even a rhythm that predates the calendar. So it's not just looking back at history, it's this active claiming of the story, presenting Black identity as inherently self-defined, always creating a force that exists. And this is key, not in spite of the world, but because of who I am. The language itself, it's meant to create this really deep, visceral connection to ancestry, to culture.
And right from the start, you feel that. It's not asking for pity, definitely not asking for permission. It feels rooted, deeply rooted in ancestral pride, like an intergenerational joy. The author grounds it immediately in history, doesn't he? He mentions civilizations, building without blueprints, charting stars without telescopes, healing with ancient wisdom. He says, your blood remembers Timbuktu, Aksum, Aif, and Kush. Why those specific places? What does calling out those ancient centers achieve for the argument?
Well, that's absolutely intentional. It's a powerful rhetorical move. By naming Timbuktu, famous for scholarship, for wealth, Aksum, a huge trading power, Aif, with its incredible art, Kush with its own pyramids and long history. By naming these, the author instantly makes the historical narrative global, elevates it. It's not just saying, oh, we have a past. It's pointing to specific concrete proof of sophisticated, self-reliant, often revolutionary civilizations. It completely reframes Black history. It asserts that culture did not start with slavery, it started with sovereignty. It's showing that history isn't just this sequence of wounds. It's also, as the author puts it, the architecture of brilliance.
That reframing,
Yeah.
shifting focus from oppression to inherent brilliance. That's really powerful. And then the article takes it further. It describes Blackness itself as a cosmos, a whole language of survival, of creation, giving the world things like jazz, reggae, gospel, hip-hop. The author says Blackness carved new tongues out of silence, painted freedom into graffiti, and wove resistance into dreadlocks. And then this line. It didn't beg for belonging, it built its own table. What's the weight behind that image? Built its own table, especially when talking about culture.
Building its own table.
Yeah, that's such a potent metaphor. It speaks directly to cultural sovereignty, self-determination. It's pushing back hard against the idea that any group needs, validation or a seat offered by the dominant culture. Instead, it highlights this proactive creation, building independent spaces, traditions, and that mirrors history, doesn't it? You see Black artists, Black communities, often shut out of the mainstream, forging completely new ways to express themselves. Think about the Harlem Renaissance or the birth of hip-hop. These movements then change global culture. It's all about agency, refusing to be defined or hemmed in by others.
Right, agency. And this self-defined sovereignty, it's not just theoretical. The author connects it brilliantly to the physical body, celebrating Black skin, Black hair as part of this proud identity. The article says Black skin carries light. It absorbs suns, stores warmth, and refuses to fade, using beautiful words like ebony, bronze, onyx, mahogany, and the hair. Coiling not in defiance, but in celebration, a crown worn in infinite patterns, untouched by shame. Why focus on these specific physical traits which have so often been marginalized? Well, that section is doing some heavy lifting. It's profoundly redefining things. It takes centuries of negative stereotypes, external beauty standards, and completely subverts them. Historically, Black skin, Black hair. They've been targets. So much pressure to assimilate. So by framing them as sources of light, warmth, calling hair crowns, the author just dismantles those harmful ideas. It's more than just description. It's a defiant reclaiming of beauty, an assertion of worth that feels almost divine, resilient. It connects to nature. It's saying that real belonging, it starts inside, in affirming your natural self. Unshakably.
And that self-affirmation then flows outwards to the people. The author insists Black women aren't caricatures, they're architects of life. Black men aren't threats, they're oracles of strength and sensitivity. Black children aren't born broken, they're blazing. And then that really powerful line, we are not your tragedy, we are not your burden, we are not your failed project, we are a sovereign reality. How does rejecting those labels so directly add to the overall feeling of pride?
It's absolutely crucial. It's an act of self-authorship. you know.
Mm.
Defining oneself by explicitly stating what Black people are not, the author systematically takes apart those dehumanizing narratives,
Yeah.
the projections, and then declaring, we are a sovereign reality that establishes this inherent status. It doesn't depend on anyone else's approval or on proving stereotypes wrong. It's a declaration of complete agency, being self-sufficient in your own being, which is fundamental if you're claiming pride and dignity in a world that often tries to undermine it. It pulls the power of definition back where it belongs.
Hmm. Speaking of agency, the article talks about resilience in such a deep way. The author says, "My people love with a depth that defies logic." They talk about turning grief into gospel, mourning into movement. Even when breaking, the idea is they do not bend into nothing. They rise, even find laughter amidst pain. This idea that joy is a weapon that feels particularly striking. How does seeing joy as a weapon change how we understand resilience here?
It's an amazing reframing, isn't it? Joy,
Ah,
we often think of it as just an emotion, maybe a luxury or even escapism. But framing it as a weapon,
yeah.
that turns it into an active strategic tool for resistance, for survival. It suggests that choosing joy, even when suffering, isn't about ignoring the pain. It's about denying those who oppress you the victory of crushing your spirit. It implies that joy, community, culture, these aren't weaknesses. They're fundamental strengths. They let people endure, thrive. They prevent that bending into nothing the author mentions. It's asserting power through defiant self-possession.
Yeah, and this whole story, this journey, it's not finished. The author makes that clear. Across Africa, across the diaspora, you have poets, thinkers, builders, farmers, warriors, healers rising again. Blackness isn't presented as static. It's evolving, creating, expanding. It's not a burden to escape, but a fire to embrace. What's the importance of that forward-looking, dynamic perspective for the whole piece?
That forward momentum is absolutely vital. It pushes back against any idea that Black identity is fixed or defined only by wounds or just reacting to things. A fire to embrace instead of a burden to escape that signals this active, positive relationship with identity. Fire suggests warmth, light, transformation, constant energy. It implies Blackness as this living, breathing, developing force, always generating new forms, new expressions. It's a source of power, of inspiration. It invites you to participate actively, not just inherit passively or try to get away from it. It makes pride feel like this ongoing, unfolding thing.
So when Shinx declares, "I'm Black and proud," it really lands differently after reading this. It's clearly not vanity or revenge or bitterness. It's positioned as truth, as reverence. It's truly a declaration of sacred belonging, a refusal to be diminished, a promise to live fully, a celebration of those thousands of reasons, seen and unseen, that make Blackness a miracle walking. It genuinely feels like that phrase, with the quiet conviction of a mountain. Wow. This deep dive has really shown just how layered and deeply rooted this pride is in the article. It really paints Blackness as this evolving creative force, embodying that fire to embrace, not some kind of burden. So thinking about all this, what does this powerful declaration and our discussion today mean for you listening right now, regardless of your own background?
That's a great question. If we zoom out a bit, Shangox's I'm Black and proud. It goes beyond one specific identity, I think. It offers a kind of universal lesson about radical self-affirmation, the author's refusal to shrink, that vow to live, celebrating Blackness as a miracle walking. These are powerful ways of declaring your own truth. It's about finding strength, not just in getting through hard times, but in truly recognizing and celebrating the unique fabric of your own identity, your ancestors, your culture, your personal story. And that really brings up a question for you listening. How do you, in your own life, acknowledge and celebrate those thousands of reasons, seen and unseen, the things that make your identity a unique and powerful miracle walking?
That really is something to think about, a compelling challenge. The article invites all of us, really, to reflect on this powerful idea of sacred belonging, not just in the context of Black identity, but for whatever makes you uniquely you. Maybe think about how Shangox's message, that ability to transform grief into gospel, mourning into movement, how that might inspire your own journey, to live out your own legacy with conviction, with joy, and maybe with that quiet conviction of a mountain.